Despite following all of these guidelines, you may still encounter some problems while implementing. However, we can troubleshoot ACL-related problems by following some tips. We can determine which interfaces have ACLs enabled and in which direction by using the show running config or show IP interfaces command. Next, we can also determine the ACL statements matched by test packets by using the show access lists or show IP access lists commands. The next step would be to analyze ACLs and determine the packets that should match the ACL. While doing this, we should focus on some important points. The first is that the ACL uses the first match logic. We could use the faster math to convert ACL address wildcard mask pairs into address wildcard mask pairs. This uses the same math as subnetting. We should identify the packet's direction in relation to the server. We should also ensure that the packets being processed by the ACL have the source and destination IP address and port. If the ACL checks the port numbers, specify the TCP and UDP keywords to be used in the commands. We need to keep in mind that ICMP packets do not use UDP or TCP. The ICMP protocols match based on the ICMP keyword. If we want to deny all traffic, we can use an explicit configuration command instead of an implicit deny command at the end of each ACL. Let's look at an example to understand these tips. The first step is to identify the location and direction of the ACLs. The output of the show running config and IP access group commands display this information for you. However, in some cases where enable mode access is not allowed, only the show IP interfaces command can display the location and direction of the ACLs. Next, identify the configuration details of the ACL that must be found. Use the show running config command to display the configuration details of ACLs. The show access lists command displays the details of non-IP ACLs. Look at the example output of a sample show IP access list command. At the end, we'll interpret and define the ACL's action. For easier troubleshooting, add the explicit deny all statements at the end of the ACL. Use these tips to smoothen your process of ACL implementation and troubleshooting.